to Tuesday Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. Happy to have you guys all back for another day. Lots of stuff to talk about as usual. Randy Johnson from the Star Tribune joins me in a little bit to talk some Gopher football, also to talk some Wild. Randy's been helping out with our Wild coverage, has a passion for hockey, which shows in how he talks about it and how he writes about it. So I picked his brain on some Wild subjects as well as Gophers spring game, who stood out in that game, and also some Gophers football draft stuff with the NFL draft coming up on Thursday. So that'll be just coming up a few minutes later on in the show here. Got to get to some Timberwolves stuff. No Kyle Anderson in Game 5 tonight. That's going to be pretty significant for them. He got poked in the eye, hit in the face by Anthony Edwards' teammate during Game 4. And will miss Game 5. That's a pretty significant loss, especially with Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid already out. So we'll get into the implications of that and whether the Wolves can still somehow find a way to extend their season on the brink again, even after winning Game 4. Got to get to a little bit of Vikings draft stuff at the end and some Jimmy Butler stuff. Two teams in the NBA who are low seeds on the verge of advancing in the playoffs. First, though, what did I miss? Did you expect anything else out of me, out of this show, than to start with Aaron Rodgers on the day that the day after, I guess, he was officially traded to the Jets? I guess officially is the wrong word at this point, but the reports are out there now that it's not just an idea, that the terms have been agreed to. This is what we know from reporting. Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets along with the Packers' first-round pick this year and a fifth-round pick this year. Jets giving up their first-round pick this year, their second-round pick this year, a sixth-round pick this year, and a conditional 2024 second-round pick that becomes a first-round pick if Rodgers plays 65% of the snaps this season. So basically, a couple of late-round pick swaps. They swapped their first-round picks this year. The Packers are upgrading a little bit, going from 15 to 13, but really the big prize is getting a number 2 pick this year and what's likely to be a number 1 pick in 2024 as long as Rodgers plays, 2/3 of this season, which he would, unless, of course, he got hurt this year. So quite a haul for Aaron Rodgers, I would say. Not exorbitant, but does stand in comparison to what the Jets had to give up for Brett Favre. Again, that was 4 months later than the Rodgers trade. That was in August after Rodgers had usurped Favre. Favre had retired, unretired. Finally, the Packers were like, hey, we're moving on. Jets swooped in, gave them a third-round pick. It was a conditional pick. It became a third-round pick. He only played 1 year there, of course, and ended up coming to the Vikings. Does not feel like that will be the scenario that plays out here with Rodgers based on how much compensation the Jets ended up giving up for him and the way his contract ultimately will be structured. But I believe that's kind of the final piece in this, is that Rodgers will have to sign an amended contract with Green Bay to help out with some cap stuff, but that this will be official, according to the reporting, before the draft on Thursday night. So I feel like we need to tie a bow on this, and some of this comes back to Brett Favre and just kind of looking back at the Aaron Rodgers era, how this all played out. And here's a confession. I used to like Aaron Rodgers, not just a healthy respect from afar for a player who is obviously very good, but I used to look at some of the kind of offbeat, quirky things he was doing, showing up in all denim, wearing a cowboy hat, riding around in the backs of pickup trucks, saying funny things, having this kind of this attitude of, we're going to go win this game. I used to like his personality, or at least like it a lot more than I do now. And so as I was thinking about that and thinking about his evolution, the evolution of how I thought of Aaron Rodgers, I tried to figure out what was kind of the pivot point. Where did this start to change, this fracture, this fraying start to change? And I think it started to change a little bit in 2017 when he got hit by Anthony Barr, injured, knocked out for the year. that piece of it changed the rivalry, obviously, with the Vikings, and I think Rodgers was, he was right to be frustrated in that moment, but I think he was upset a little bit more than he needed to be, said some things he probably shouldn't have said in that case. So that piece of it was kind of maybe start of it, but more so I think it was Packers moving on from Ted Thompson, hiring Brian Gutekunst in 2018, later in 2018, after that season, firing Mike McCarthy, even if that became a very good thing for Rodgers' career, because they hire Matt LaFleur, they start kind of changing the offense a little bit. Now they win 13 games in 2019, 2020, 2021. Rodgers wins back-to-back MVPs. Like, this was good for his career. His demeanor somewhere in there, though, changed. His attitude somewhere in there changed. And I think it became this thing where it used to be kind of this family that got torn apart a little bit. This kind of way the Packers had always been run, what he was used to, became that got changed somewhere in there around 2018, 2019. His body language at that point started to change to me. Got a little bit more standoffish, a little bit more full of himself. He was always one to be somewhat demonstrative, to get frustrated when people weren't doing what he thought they should be doing on the field. But I feel like somewhere in there it changed, and my perception of him changed. I obviously still respected him as a player, respected what he could do, but started to not like him as much. Then, of course, 2020, the Packers draft Jordan Love. He goes full pout mode at that point. COVID happens. He, lies, or at the very least obscures the truth when talking about whether or not he's been vaccinated by saying he has been immunized. That's another brick in the wall of not liking Aaron Rodgers. And then last year just looked like he was miserable, didn't want to be there, and now here we are with the trade. So something happened in there that changed his relationship with the Packers, and I think that relationship with the Packers changed his personality, and I think that change in his personality changed my perception of Aaron Rodgers from someone who I genuinely liked to being someone who I was just like, well, that's a really good quarterback, but I don't really like that person as an individual. So that's just kind of food for thought, just kind of how this is all connected. I think he also had a hard time at the end, with two things related to Favre. One of them being he was never as loved as Favre was in Green Bay. He could have done a lot of different things on the field. Favre was always going to be the more relatable character off the field. And I think that bothered him to a certain degree, bothered him at his core, that Packers fans were ready to move on from him, even if he wasn't ready to move on at a certain point, and that there was always this more genuine love for Favre, even if Aaron Rodgers, at the end of the day, was probably a better quarterback than Brett Favre. The other piece of that is I don't think he ever could have imagined his end playing out the same way that Favre's end played out, but it could not be more symmetrical, right? He plays, a bunch of years. I think he played 15 years. Favre played 16 years. Both of them get traded to the Jets, both of them with young quarterbacks 3 years removed from being drafted, with Rodgers initially and then out Jordan Love. The situation could not be more symmetrical in a lot of ways, and I don't think he could have ever imagined that happening to him, and then it did. So I'll be interested to see how this all plays out when things are said and done, when his career is over. He'll probably mend some fences with Green Bay, just like Favre did. But for now, it's fascinating to see. It's fascinating to imagine how this all played out for Aaron Rodgers, where things started to go haywire in his relationship with the team. One final thought, as Mark Craig wrote about in today's Star Tribune, the stability at quarterback for Green Bay for the last 3 decades is now at least a question mark. And we didn't know how good Aaron Rodgers was going to be, so there was a point 15 years ago where it was like, okay, how good is he really going to be here? What's going to happen when he takes over for Brett Favre? And I think we don't know about Jordan Love, but what we do know is he is a great unknown, and that piece of it has to give Vikings fans some confidence and some cheers. Like Mark Craig said in his piece, that this could finally be a point where the Vikings could be a team that dominates the division if Jordan Love isn't this once-in-a-generation quarterback. Continuing a Nemesis theme, Twins beat the Yankees 6-1 at Target Field on Monday. Now 3-2 against the Yankees this season, 13-10 overall. let's call this a Sonny Gray and Joey Gallo appreciation moment here. Both of them former Yankees, motivated, I would imagine in a small part at least, to beat their former team. Neither one of them particularly enjoyed their time in New York. Both of them off to very good starts this year, in particular Sonny Gray. ERA still under 1 after holding the Yankees basically completely in check over 7 innings. He's been dynamite for them this season. And in combination with Pablo Lopez, even though his recent start was bad, and Joe Ryan, giving the Twins just a great 1-2-3 at the top of the rotation. Gallo, another monstrous long home run. Jorge Polanco knocked in a couple runs. The offense looks like it's really benefiting from the return of Polanco. He's had good games each of the last 2 in Twins wins. So continuing the Nemesis theme, like I said, it's just 1 of 162, but it's good to see the Twins playing these good teams, or these traditionally good teams, well this year. Beating Houston, beating the Yankees, stuff like that this season. There'll be bigger tests along the way. I don't think those are the 2 best teams in the American League, but the fact that they're hanging with them, the fact that they are coming out ahead in those games is certainly a good sign and was definitely a departure from recent years.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake. With 24/7 gaming, the good times never have to end. And you can satisfy your cravings at our restaurants and bars. Or relax in one of our luxurious hotel rooms. Those that play together, stay together. And don't forget to join Club M so you can spark new memories and bask in the rewards along the way. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
All right, I want to bring on Randy Johnson right now on a couple different things. Hockey and football. Now, Randy, usually when we talk hockey, it is Gopher hockey, because you cover that. And last time we talked, I think, was right after the Frozen Four, right after the NCAA title game that lost to Quinnipiac. But you've jumped onto our team Wild coverage and been doing a really nice job with kind of morning after, actually probably night of, posted morning after, kind of observations from the game, kind of things to look at, and I've been enjoying those. So I want to talk about that and some Gophers football stuff. First off, how you doing?
Pretty good, trying to get a little rest here and there. It was a very busy weekend with the late game Friday, and then turn around for the Gopher spring game on Saturday. But it's been fun. It's a lot of cool stuff to cover, especially the hockey.
They indulge us with a 7 p.m. start time on Tuesday, which is a little bit better for all of us.
Yeah, that's a nice deal there. I mean, down in Dallas, it'll be hopefully it won't be a 1 a.m. finish.
Yes, I hope not. If it is, it will be a record-setting game without any doubt, because they already set the record for longest playoff game in Game 1. The game they won, and they took a 2-1 series lead, and then Dallas comes back and wins 3-2 on Sunday. The topic that you cover quite a bit in your morning after piece on Monday, Randy, but this is going to be a storyline throughout this whole series, however long it goes. This battle between Wild trying to stay out of the box, play physical, but not go over the line. And I think they felt like they didn't go over the line on Sunday. Called for, I think, only 3 total power plays, but 2 of them on calls that I don't think Marcus Foligno liked at all, and I don't think Dean Evison liked at all either. What was your impression of, first of all, of the penalties that got called? Because you probably have a keener eye for what's fair and what's not fair in a penalty situation.
Yeah, I thought both were pretty soft calls, really. The first one, he's finishing a check. The guy had the puck, had just released the puck. He finishes the check, blasts him pretty good and everything. The second one was really mysterious there. They called tripping on him. He came in with a shoulder to chest hit. The opponent's stick got him in the nose, took him out of there, and he gets penalized for it at a pretty key point in the game. And there might have been a hit that he had that Dallas took a retaliatory penalty on it. That one might have been one that would have been under the category of possibly penalizing the Wild on that one, but the other 2 were pretty tough calls for the Wild, I would say.
Yeah, I thought so too, especially that second one, because he comes in, he gets hit when the when I'm seeing them sorting it out, I'm thinking it's going to, at the very worst for the Wild, be coincidental, because he came in pretty hard. He could have got something where his stick was up. I didn't see it at first, but I thought they might be getting their own power play on that when I saw that the stick got up and got him in the nose. And then all of a sudden, all it is a penalty on the Wild. And of course, Dallas scores on the ensuing power play, just like they did on the first Foligno penalty. And that's the story of the game. I mean, so as they think about it, how do they kind of reconcile playing hard, staying out of the box, while also A, killing penalties better, but B, recognizing that this is kind of the difference in the series right now, is that, 5-on-4 Dallas, I think, is outscoring them 8-3, which includes the one shorthanded goal for Dallas as well.
Yeah, the situation, the 7 power play goals they've allowed, it's they got to shore up that penalty kill. It's biting them hard right now. Dean Evison's been asked, do you change your approach, your physical approach? And he says no. They need to stay physical. That's their game. That they're going to continue playing that. They hope that the refereeing doesn't show what they did last night. Where you do get a couple soft calls against you. It's got to be pretty frustrating when you feel you're playing the game the right way, the playoff way, and you get calls like that. That said, it's been a very interesting back and forth between Evison and Pete DeBoer
yes.
on the penalties. DeBoer is trying very hard to let the officials be aware of that the Wild takes a lot of penalties and plays that physical game. Dallas last night came out very strong on the physical end too. First period, 21 hits. They adjusted their play a bit and basically tried to take the Wild's game a little bit and throw it back in their face early on. At least the Wild weathered that storm and it was a pretty tight game the rest of the way.
The narrative, though, isn't exactly true. Like during the regular season, the Wild is basically a middle of the pack team in terms of power plays allowed, and they were kind of a middle of the pack team in terms of their penalty kill. It was not great, but it was okay. It was serviceable, and Dallas's power play was pretty good. I think they were like 10th or 11th in regular season power play. So DeBoer is certainly trying to get these calls, but I don't think it's the Wild that's so that they're taking so many penalties. In fact, the power plays have been pretty even in this series. It's just that Dallas, I think we've seen a few calls that maybe they didn't like, that the Wild hasn't liked, and Dallas is just taking way more advantage of this. And if they're not going to, if the calls are going to go a certain way, you're going to understand that every game there's going to be 3 or 4 power plays no matter what. How do you then, what's the mystery of the penalty kill? Is it just that they've only had Joel Eriksson for 19 seconds of this series, or how do you get better on the penalty kill?
Well, that is one area that hurts, not having Eck out there. I mean, obviously very good defensive centerman. But the other thing is the faceoffs. Dallas is so good on the faceoffs, best team in the league. And you saw for game 1, 3 seconds after a penalty began, and then 6 seconds after a penalty began, they had power play goals because they won the draws and capitalized right away on there. That's one thing where Eck would be a big help in the circle. Basically the Wild's best guy in the dot at times.
And I think that's an interesting point too, because I think face-off percentage can be a little bit overblown or overrated sometimes because the margins are so thin. Like, what's really the difference between a team that's 52% on face-offs versus 47% is basically like one face-off every 20 face-offs. But if you're good enough that you are consistently winning draws on the power play and maintaining the possession in your end, that's where it really does matter.
Yeah, that's it. You get that possession, you get a little screen going or whatever, all of a sudden it's in the back of the net, and that's what's happened in the Wild a few times there.
Now, I don't think we have any more goalie controversies on our hands or goalie questions, but I'm not going to put it past Dean Evason to make a different decision. Well, Gustafsson played awfully well. I think the game 4 was probably was the weakest of his games in this series, but still, I have to imagine they're going to stay with him. What do you think along those lines?
Yeah, I think so. I would guess, unless they saw something out of last night that they didn't like, but I don't think that's the case. They're not going to say it. And Dean's holding everything close to the vest. He said he's not going to divulge any lineup changes or anything. So Yeah, I would very much expect Gustafson to be back in there Tuesday night in Dallas.
Any changes then are going to have to be internal, and one change is one goal combined from Kaprizov and Boldy in 4 games. And I think Kaprizov's been visible. He just hasn't cashed in on his chances. Boldy's got 3 assists. So it's not like these guys aren't doing anything, but we saw how good Kaprizov was in that series last year, really carrying a lot of the offense, and he was good against Vegas 2 years ago too. This has been a little bit of a contrast. I don't know if he's kind of a sleeping giant right now, or if they're doing something to hold him down. What in your estimation is kind of how you view his series so far?
Yeah, it's a situation where all of a sudden this year they have the balance scoring, but they aren't getting it from their normal productive goal scorers. Basically, it's keep going at it, getting the pucks on the net. Last night couple glorious scoring chances that Kaprizov failed to convert on that really hurt. The one especially, he had a wide open net and he shot high on it, and that definitely would have been a goal. It just keep at it. I guess the more chances you get, the more often you're going to get one in. It's just they're boldly very snake bit right now on the goal scoring end of it. Friday night it seems like all the passes the Wild were making were crisp and on the tape. Last night, not so much. They kind of fought the puck a little bit and were not quite as consistent in their passing game. Basically, that so short circuit some chances.
Opportunity missed, obviously, when you're up 2-1 and playing Game 4 at home. That said, I feel like on balance, they've been the better team in this series. I feel like the 7 power play goals for Dallas is a bit of an outlier. I mean, maybe the lack of 5-on-5 scoring is a bit of an outlier for them too. So maybe not to get too excited. Their offense could come from a lot of different places at any time. But to me, it still feels like this is the Wild series to win, even if 2 of the 3 games are in Dallas. What's your judgment overall on the series before we move on to some football talk?
I'd say they've been the better team 5-on-5 for sure. And, you want to keep the game that way if you're the Wild. The X factor in there has been Jake Ottinger. He's been very, very good for Dallas, especially last night. It's, you run into a hot goalie, it changes things a bit. But, I don't think the Wild, aside from Game 2, I don't think the Wild's goaltending has been an issue. Yes, Gustafson could have been a bit better last night, but Game 1 he was amazing. I think he has just as good a chance to steal another game as Ottinger does. So it's just really 2 evenly matched teams. They weren't separated by much in the standings, and it's showing up in this series.
Yeah, I think that's a good overall takeaway. It's been a really good series so far, and even if a Wild fan might want them to, obviously win this next one and finish it off in 6. It does have the feel of a series that could certainly go 7 and could go down to the wire in a final game. Randy, let's transition quick to Gopher football. The spring game was this weekend, had to move it inside. I feel like they should just start it inside from now on and then move it outside if it actually winds up being nice in late April, because I feel like they have to move it inside more often than not.
Yeah, that was it's the weather just has not cooperated in the last few years, and then you miss a COVID year, and then 2020. But it was a very astute decision to move it indoors because it was a miserable day on Saturday. So I don't think you would have had your hardy souls there going outdoors to watch it, but I don't think it would have been much more attendance wise than they actually had indoors with the family and alumni of the players.
Wouldn't have been 45,000 like Dion got in Colorado?
Nope. You would not have seen that. You wouldn't have seen PJ Fleck out in a cowboy hat like Dion. So it's just on a miserable day like that, people gonna stay inside probably.
Well, you were among the few then that got to see it. What were I read your takeaways. Sound like the quarterbacks, especially Kramer and Eighth and Kalkmanis were pretty good. Kalkmanis a little bit of a slow start. Kramer, though, sounds like he was pretty good throughout.
Yeah, Cole Kramer was dialed in pretty good. Gives them a nice option there if they have to go to a backup. I don't think that Ethan lost the job by any means. with his performance. He rebounded nicely. But yeah, Cole Kramer was very sharp. I thought he was the standout at the quarterbacks, and it was good to see the early enrollee freshman Drew Viato, who he had some nice throws too. He's a big guy, and he looks like he can play the part pretty well.
A lot of turnover, obviously, with the roster. Some new guys in major skill position roles. Obviously, no Mo Ibrahim anymore, so that's a big change from past years. And wide receivers, some turnover there. Who else in the skill positions caught your eye?
Okay, and the wideouts, that was the guys that caught my eye were obviously a holdover in Le'Meke Brockington, the hero of the Wisconsin game last year with a winning touchdown. He had a nice day. Elijah Spencer, the transfer from Charlotte, he just wore out the opposing defense on slant routes all afternoon. He played pretty well. Corey Crooms, another transfer, made a couple nice catches, went down low one time and scooped one before it hit the ground. He looked like he's somebody who could make a difference. In the backfield, impressed with both Zach Evans and then Darius Taylor, the incoming freshman, early enrollee. Taylor had a nice physical run to set up a touchdown late in the game, and then Taylor Evans showed some breakaway speed on a play, about a 75-yard touchdown run where he juked Coleman Bryson pretty well to get free in the secondary and take it to the house.
Last thing on this, and I want to ask you a draft question before we go. What do you make of PJ Fleck essentially saying, this is something paraphrasing here because I don't have the direct quote right in front of me, but saying this has been like the hardest spring they've had in a while and that they've kind of had to grow up fast. What do you make of him saying that right now?
Hardest, and what he was saying, basically the most amount of work they've had to do to get this team ready. There has been a lot of turnover. A lot of those sixth and some seventh year seniors that are moving on. And then you no longer have your all-time leading rusher, All-America center in John Michael Schmitz. Say for what it's worth, I mean, basically your quarterback in Tanner Morgan, who has the most victories in school history. Guys like that, they've been there forever. I mean, it's somebody had pointed out that PJ Fleck hasn't coached a practice that until this spring that didn't include Tanner Morgan.
Wow.
And there since his first year.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a good point. It does feel like there's a level of variance for this season, and a lot of it does depend on how quick I think what he said, how quick they can grow up, how quick they kind of adjust on the fly, and how good some of these new players are. But it brings a level of intrigue to it when there are new people in the mix. Randy, you mentioned John Michael Schmitz, obviously somebody who's got a pretty high draft stock. Where do we keep saying like late first, early second round for him for the draft, maybe getting his name called Thursday, maybe having to wait till early Friday, and then a bunch of other guys have a chance to get drafted as well.
Yeah, I would say that, there is a chance John Michael goes on Thursday. I would probably say there's a better chance it's like the second round, but you never know. I mean, he's been very impressive in the Senior Bowl, things like that, and in the combine and in the pro day. So, that people have been read Twitter, everybody's raving about him. Then you look at a couple defensive backs and Terrell Smith and Jordan Howden might be third day guys. Mo Ibrahim, be interesting to see where he goes. I would say probably a third day guy. It's, running backs aren't valued as much
right
in the NFL as they are, say, in college. So then, you got guys like that. We'll see what happens with Tanner. I imagine somebody will, if he's not drafted, somebody will, take a look at him for free agent signing. He's already been drafted by the Michigan Panthers of the USFL. Then you got guys like Thomas Rush, defensive end. There's a chance maybe he slides in late in the draft, but obviously somebody who would get a good look as a free agent signee too.
Yeah, well, it should be intriguing. We'll be looking to see where all of those guys go in addition to everything else from the draft. Randy, appreciate it on all these subjects. We'll be watching Tuesday night to see how that Wild game goes. Of course, plenty of coverage coming from that on Wednesday's show as well. Until then, Randy, appreciate it. Take care. Get some rest.
Yeah, sounds good, Mike. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate the insights from Randy Johnson on all of those subjects, especially Wild hockey. He's been doing a good job in helping out with Sarah McClellan as she's been covering this series, just with kind of some supplemental stuff and watching the games, in a little bit of a different way. And I appreciate his kind of thoughts on the penalties, the things that we're watching right now, things that we're all seeing right now. So thanks to Randy for hopping on and talking about that. Couple interesting things. Let's finish with the cooler. Number one, like Randy was talking about, draft coming up Thursday night. Saw something from Todd McShay earlier this week. Hendon Hooker, the quarterback that's been mocked to the Vikings a lot lately, maybe now expected to not get out of the top 20, and the Vikings pick 23rd. So a lot of rising on the board for Hendon Hooker. So we'll have to watch that. Is he even going to be available when the Vikings pick at 23? A lot of smoke screens get thrown up this time of year. I guess I'll say I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe whatever is going to happen with him. We will know in a couple days anyway. But that's interesting to me. A guy who at one point was probably more of a second-round grade, at least maybe third round, is now maybe thought of in much higher stature than he originally was. So what the Vikings are able to do, what they are deciding to do, what they want to do, we'll know that in a couple days. You can check out all of our mock drafts too on StarTribune.com. Ben Gessling and Mark Craig will have mock drafts this week. But it's just, quarterback is just an interesting thing. Anytime a quarterback is in play, the draft becomes more important, and I'm really interested to see if they like Hendon Hooker and if he's going to be there at 23, or what they might have to do if they really do like him. And a couple final thoughts here. Timberwolves, like I said at the jump, will be without Kyle Anderson tonight as they try to stave off elimination against the Nuggets. That makes a tough ask even harder. I will be fascinated to see how they change or don't change rotations without Kyle Anderson. He's been one of their most important players for a lot of this season. He, probably was good for 25 or 30 minutes, so that's a lot of minutes you are going to have to replace. Do they do more of the two big lineup? Do they go small and, guys like Torian Prince and Nickeil Alexander-Walker get more minutes? Does someone inexperienced get more minutes like Nathan Knight or even someone like Josh Minot? I don't know. It's a big game to throw someone into. I would imagine it's going to be the trusted players that play more minutes, not new guys taking up Kyle Anderson's minutes. But that is why we watch the games, and that is a subplot tonight. A tough guy to be missing, especially when you're already missing Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid. And to finish off with a Nemesis theme, Jimmy Butler had 56 points for the Heat last night as they beat the Bucks. They are up 3-1 in that series, as are the Lakers after the Lakers beat Memphis in overtime. The Lakers, the 7 seed. The Bucks, the number 1 overall seed in the NBA, and of course then the number 1 seed in the East, on the brink. We'll see if they can come back. Giannis, of course, has been hurt. But man, Jimmy Butler, 56 points in that game, putting the Heat on his back. LeBron with the 2020 game. The best players show up in the biggest moments. Something to remember for Anthony Edwards and Kirill Kaprizov tonight. That will do it for me. Should be plenty of stuff coming off of those 2 big playoff games, Game 5s tonight, as well as other stuff tomorrow. Until then, enjoy the rest of your sunny Tuesday. I'm Michael Rand, back at it again tomorrow.